Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Venture Matters TV. This series is initiated by KrASIA, a media brand under 36Kr Global, covering innovation news in Asia in Chinese, English, and Japanese. VMTV was launched to provide insights about Asian investment patterns and cross-border opportunities. So through this TV series, we will invite top VCs active in their fields to share their opinion on global market trends. Today, I'm very excited to have with me Nobutake Suzuki, President and CEO of MUFG Innovation Partners. Hello, Suzuki-san. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, hi, everybody. Hi.
So to get started, perhaps I'll let Suzuki-san do a quick introduction and sharing about MUFG Innovation Partners.
Sure. Hi, my name is Nobutake Suzuki, and I'm President and CEO of MUFG Innovation Partners, which is a corporate venture capital fund for MUFG. So let me quickly explain about MUFG and MUFG Innovation Partners with you guys. Hi, can you allow me to maybe share the screen?
Sure. Okay, let's do that. Okay, can try it again now.
Okay.
So while Suzuki-san is loading his slides, I think all of us knows that one of the most notable investments that MUFG has done recently was an investment in Grab, right?
Yes.
That was really exciting. Oh, okay, I can see your slides now.
Yep. Okay. So initially, let me explain about MUFG itself. And MUFG is the largest banking group in Japan, and it has deployed into major 50 countries globally, and we have more than 150,000 professionals across the world. And interesting is that we have more than 360 years of history. And our initial business was exchange business during the era of Shogun. And we have right now 2.8 trillion US dollars asset, which is the 5th largest among the world banks. And you can see the map, which shows our geographical footprint. And obviously, Japan is the mother market for us, and we deploy a major financial business in Japan, from a retail, commercial banking to investment banking, credit card, and so on. And other than Japan, we have two major important markets globally. And the first is US, and where we have a Union Bank as a wholly owned subsidiary in California. And also we have 24% stakes in the Morgan Stanley. So we invested $9 billion in the company during the burst of subprime loan. And since then, Morgan Stanley has paid us $1 billion dividend every year, which is quite good investment for MUFG. But also more importantly, we have a joint venture with Morgan Stanley in Japan regarding investment banking, and which is quite good, successful. And also the other important market is Southeast Asia, where we have 4 affiliate and subsidiary banks there, what we call partner banks in the major ASEAN countries. So in Thailand, we have a KrASIA or Bank of Ayutthaya. We own 74% of the bank. And also we have Bank Danamon in Indonesia, and we own 94% of the bank. And also we own 20% of Vietnam Bank in Vietnam, and also Security Bank in Philippines. And also we are very much keen to work with various kind of technology companies, startups. But let me skip this slide and move into our track record by investment. So before the launch of MUFG Innovation Partners, the bank directly invested in fintech companies for almost 3 years. And the first investment by MUFG Bank was Coinbase, which is a very famous crypto exchange in the States. And since then, the bank invested in 15 global fintech companies. But in 2019, the bank decided to spin off such operation as a separate entity and launched a GP company, which is MUFG Innovation Partners, and also CVC fund. And since then, MUFG Innovation Partners, or MUIP, has invested in 16 global fintech companies, mainly in the States, Southeast Asia, Japan, and also Israel. And I think maybe we have several maybe themes about investment, but major maybe theme is like maybe fintech lending companies or security token companies and also marketplace and so on. So, as Tansa mentioned, so we invest in a Grab, but also we invest in various, fintech lending companies in the States, which include the BlueBuy and the Fundbox. And also we invest in the other SEA startups like Investree and KrASIA. Okay. This is the final slide, but as for myself, so, I used to work for Sanwa Bank, which is a Japanese large bank, and also one of 4 banks merged into current MUFG. But I quit the bank in 2002 and moved to an independent VC firm called Global Bank. And since then, I was mainly in charge of investing in foreign startups and also management of CVC fund with major Japanese corporations. And in 2018, I came back to MUFG, and I created a CVC fund and the GP company in 2019. And since then, so I have been president CEO position. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suzuki-san. I'm curious, right? So in your presentation, I can see that MUFG places a lot of emphasis on Southeast Asia, right?
Yes.
So what about Southeast Asia attracted you, or Japanese investors in general?
Yeah, that's a good question. And obviously, for most of Japanese companies, Southeast Asia is maybe, one maybe nearest market. And they have, over 600 million people there. Mm-hmm. And the market is growing rapidly, maybe in terms of economy and the population. So there are so many Japanese companies which have operation in Southeast Asia. So obviously, maybe Japanese corporations have maybe intention to penetrate into market by working with local startups here. Hmm. So maybe in case of MUFG, as I mentioned, we have 4 partner banks here, and we want to pursue a business strategy between our partner banks and each local country startups here. So also, yeah, I think maybe also maybe there may be another reason which maybe attract maybe Japanese investor to the market, and it's a basically diversified market. It's a huge market, but also ASEAN maybe consists of maybe various countries which have a different kind of maybe a background of culture, languages, and business customs. But maybe once you can maybe overcome such a maybe how can I say differences or maybe obstacles, maybe you can do a very scalable business there.
Understand.
Yeah.
Understand. I like that you brought up culture. So I will come back to that later towards the end of our panel. But as for now, I wanted to ask if, whether you are still bullish on Southeast Asia despite of, coronavirus.
Yeah. Actually, I believe maybe Southeast Asia is maybe less impacted by COVID-19. I think due to various reasons. And actually, we have maybe 3-4 portfolio companies there, but of course, we have monitored maybe each company's performance every month. Of course, most of the countries maybe had suffered from lockdown situation for a while, but already maybe some of countries already got out from the lockdown situation and doing reopening the economy. So I see some maybe rebound in there, and maybe from the maybe more maybe large picture, maybe a point of view, SEA is less impacted by COVID-19, maybe in comparison with maybe let's say US market or EU countries and so on. So that's why I'm still bullish on the maybe SEA market.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I have a question from one of our participants. So Steve was asking if MUFG will ever be interested in investing into Chinese startups.
Yes, that's a good question. And MUFG has a large operation in China market, and we have maybe 8 or 10 branches there in the major Chinese cities. And but mainly MUFG has focused on I think maybe business with large Japanese companies there, and also large Chinese companies, or maybe government or municipals there. But not for SMEs or consumers. And I think maybe, yes, we have a possibility to invest in Chinese companies. And we have visited maybe Beijing or Hong Kong or other cities since Shenzhen in China, I think maybe 1 year ago. And I met with fintech companies, mainly AI companies there, and I was so impressed with the level of technology of these companies, and also maybe scale of business too. And especially maybe I'm impressed with maybe AI companies, and I think maybe you know, obviously maybe Chinese AI companies are so advanced maybe, and maybe in comparison with maybe Japanese AI companies or US AI companies. And there are maybe several reasons. One is like maybe creatively social implementation of maybe AI technologies are maybe easier than other countries in China. So you already have a huge track record of maybe application of AI technologies in the various maybe sectors. And also you literally easily maybe access to maybe big data. And so that's why maybe Chinese AI companies are so maybe nice and sexy for investors. And so already some Chinese AI companies have worked with Japanese large corporations, you know, let's say in sectors like autonomous driving technologies, and also maybe let's say, you know, security camera and so on. And so maybe in the future, MUFG might invest in maybe a Chinese AI company to maybe take advantage of such a Chinese AI technology in Japanese market, or also other market where MUFG has developed businesses like maybe US or Southeast Asia. But I think maybe a fintech is a little bit different story, because fintech is, I think, it seems like a maybe global business, but actually it's a local business because it's highly regulated by local regulator. So I have met with many Chinese fintech companies, but they tend to focus on their mother market because Chinese market is huge, and Japanese market only has maybe 1/10 of maybe China. So also maybe if we want to maybe come to Japanese market, you have to maybe adapt to maybe Japanese regulations and also business customers and so on, which could be maybe an obstacle for maybe Chinese startups to maybe get into Japanese market.
Right. I don't think it's just for Chinese startups, right? Because even if it's a Singapore fintech company trying to go into Indonesia, right, then there would be an obstacle already.
You're right.
Speaking of China, right, we do notice quite a lot of capital flowing into Southeast Asia from China.
Yes.
Do you see that as competition?
Yes, actually, you know, Chinese companies like maybe Tencent or Alibaba have heavily invested in maybe startups there, and also other maybe Chinese venture fund also have aggressively invested in maybe startups there too. But I don't think maybe we see competition, because I think maybe you know, Chinese and Japanese investors have different idea about maybe how they can invest in and how they can work with their portfolio company. So in some cases, we might create a maybe a mutually complementary relationship with the Chinese investors. Yeah.
Okay. So since I think one of the most newsworthy information recently was your investment into Grab, right?
Yes.
And then you were sharing that, you know, through this investment, MUFG hopes to provide innovative financial services to clients in Southeast Asia. So what do you mean by innovative financial services?
Yes, MUFG Bank and also MUFG Innovation Partners have jointly invested roughly saying $800 million in the company. And since then, MUFG Bank has been a first choice bank for Grab, which means MUFG has some kind of exclusivity, maybe regarding provision of finance service over the Grab's platform. And maybe, yeah, example of innovative finance services like, Grab has a huge amount of data set regarding the, transaction or various kind of maybe behaviors of their drivers, merchant, and also consumer users too. So maybe I can pick up maybe one example regarding drivers loan. And Grab has over millions drivers, and Grab knows, how much each driver make money and how safely each driver drives their motorcycle. And based on such alternative data, we believe maybe we can provide loans to drivers who want to maybe purchase new motorcycle. And previously, we didn't have such alternative data, so we just maybe reviewed, let's say, maybe attributes of maybe each driver. But actually, Grab drivers are basically kind of micro entrepreneur.
Yeah.
What they call. And usually they don't have a credit history, so it's hard for banks like MUFG to maybe lend the money to such micro entrepreneurs without maybe credit history. But Grab's data maybe enable us to maybe provide a loan with appropriate conditions. That's maybe one example. Yeah.
I see. Was it hard to kind of convince other counterparts in MUFG to accept different standards of, assessing whether you can extend a loan to this person? Because looking at a person's credit rating, right, has been something the banks have been doing for years, right? So was it difficult for you to convince other departments or teams to allow this to happen?
Yeah, obviously, we never done such a things in the past. So it's obviously challenge for us. Yeah. So, but I think maybe initially maybe with smaller size, maybe we wanna maybe launch this kind of loan to maybe Grab drivers, but gradually maybe we can increase the size of maybe a portfolio based on maybe track record or outcomes of maybe credit scoring model. Yeah.
Interesting. So I have a question from the floor asking you for a couple of examples of the most memorable startups or partnerships you have worked on.
Yeah, obviously Grab is most maybe largest maybe a deal, in the past for MUFG Innovation Partners, and but also it's not about SCA, but I think maybe we can't discuss detail, but let's say maybe we have invested in several fintech lending companies in the States, and we might maybe launch some kind of maybe collaboration with such companies, maybe which has a similar kind of idea, like maybe what we did with Grab. So basically, banks traditionally rely on finance statement to maybe assess creditworthiness of borrowers in the past. But we feel like maybe we need to adopt to maybe a new era, which is basically credit scoring model based on real-time based and also alternative data. And advanced fintech companies, especially maybe in the States, have already maybe such technologies. And so I think maybe we can learn a lot of things from maybe these company technologies.
Understand.
That is a very innovative for bank.
Understand. But if we were to look at Southeast Asia, right, I would think that, I think during our conversation, you were saying a lot of the investment that you're looking at depends on, the markets that your partner banks are in. So like Thailand, right? So is it hard to move institution, even though they are partners? Is it difficult to kind of get them to adopt innovation?
Yeah, I think maybe our partner banks are more aggressive than maybe MUFG itself.
Oh.
And yeah, I think because maybe it could be a difference of maybe a culture, between Japan and let's say Thailand or Indonesia or maybe other countries. But I think maybe Japan has a longer history of matured financial systems. Maybe if you come to Japan, maybe you can see a lot of maybe ATMs maybe in the town. And also we have so many branches too, maybe here. And but I think maybe Southeast Asian countries have maybe shorter history of maybe financial systems. And their system is not so much like Japan, which means maybe what we call maybe we see leapfrog phenomena, which means I think maybe people already have smartphones, so you don't need to maybe create branches, ATMs to maybe deal with your clients, followers, customers. But you already have a smartphone, so let's focus on maybe smartphone banking, right? But we have some kind of legacy asset in Japan, like offline branches and the ATM networks and so on, which is now being kind of maybe a liability for the bank, right? So we have some kind of conflict between new technology and also existing asset. But I think maybe SCA banks relatively maybe have a less conflict between legacy asset and new technologies.
I see.
Yeah.
So in this case, actually having less developed infrastructure might actually work out better for some of the countries in Southeast Asia. Interesting. This actually reminds me of the conversation we just had about blockchain. So I have a question by Georg who asked, who is very curious about your investment, MUFG's investment into Coinbase. So, how important is the crypto, or rather the blockchain industry for you personally and for MUFG?
Yes. MUFG Bank invested in Coinbase in 2016, 4 years ago. So I think maybe recently you might have heard about rumors of IPO of the company. So maybe you can easily imagine that maybe during 4 years, maybe we might see some maybe a tremendous increase of value of our investment.
Okay.
So I think maybe in terms of investment, which is quite successful. And but also, generally speaking, financial institutions like banks have dilemma about maybe how we partner with crypto-related companies due to regulatory issues like anti-money laundering and also KYCs and so on. So banks need to follow regulation by FATF or local regulators regarding KYC AML. But generally speaking, crypto-related business companies have less maybe sense of maybe anti-money laundering or KYC or other regulations which highly regulate banks. So it's not easy to maybe work with such a company. So, but anyway, we did invest in Coinbase, and but maybe in terms of strategic meaning, I think maybe we are still looking for maybe synergies with the company.
I see.
And but now we are shifting to a security token or digital asset, which is basically blockchain-based technology, and applying such a blockchain technology to existing financial instruments like equity or commercial paper or corporate bond and so on, or maybe other asset classes like real estate and so on. And so banks maybe think that maybe by using blockchain technology and applying such a technology to let's say securitization business, we can dramatically reduce the cost associated with current inefficient analog-based procedure.
Yeah.
And instead of that, maybe we can use the blockchain and cut the cost and also increase liquidity, because theoretically we can minimize the size of investment into almost zero, which means it's a kind of maybe a democratization of financial instrument to maybe everybody, right?
Understand.
Yeah, so that's why we invest in the two important companies. One is a company called Figure, which is a US-based company. And Figure was launched by a very famous, legendary entrepreneur in the States in the fintech space, Mr. Mike Cagney. He is a founder of also SoFi. SoFi is very famous at the student loan. And Figure basically securitizes HELOC or home equity line of credit, which is a kind of a mortgage loan. And securitized mortgage loan and issuing cryptocurrencies backed by such a HELOC asset. And they also operate an exchange called Providence. And so you can make a transaction of a HELOC-backed asset crypto exchange, crypto on such a Providence. And also we invested in another company called Securitize, which is also a US-based company and providing a security token platform too. And basically the company, provide a various solution to, let's say, businesses who want to maybe securitize various kind of asset class like a real estate or some kind of private funds and so on.
I noticed the examples you raised were, from the US. What do you think? Do you think blockchain can ever be applied? When will blockchain be applied to Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Figure already, applied the technology on securitization of real estate. And I think maybe they have originated more than, I think maybe $1 billion or $2 billion asset in the past. So they already have a huge track record. And in Southeast Asia, as I mentioned, the SAA has less matured financial system, which means there's room to adopt new technologies. And obviously, blockchain technology is most innovative, but also most maybe important technology for financial market in Southeast Asia. I think maybe also regulators like MAS in Singapore or other regulators in ASEAN countries are so aggressive to maybe utilize blockchain technologies for, let's say, stock exchange or various kind of maybe financial transactions. So basically, I'm very optimistic regarding Southeast Asia's adoption of blockchain technology. Maybe we can see significant outcomes within maybe 3 to 5 years.
Wow. Okay. In terms of infrastructure, though, do you think, what are the key elements of infrastructure that a country must have before they can apply blockchain?
I think maybe there are two important elements in terms of infrastructure. First one is regulation. And obviously, this kind of new technology should be supported by regulator and the governments. And which means you have to create a new regulation laws for blockchain technology-based transaction. And I think recently, even in Japan, Japanese Financial Services Agency has just modified their, financial instrument regulation to, make, security token or digital asset as maybe legalized, asset class and financial instrument in the law. And I think maybe the same thing will happen in SAA countries too. And the other important element is security. And obviously, blockchain technology has less track record in terms of maybe reliability or track record. And some people are still concerned about maybe security breach or other kind of maybe incident on the blockchain. So I think maybe people and the business should be comfortable with new technologies. So in order to make it happen, maybe the industry key players and have to maybe prove that maybe this technology should work and it should be proven.
Do you think that it's a chicken and egg problem? Like if a corporate wants to implement blockchain in their processes, they need to first convince the government to allow it on the regulation level. So without regulation, they can't do it. And then yet without use case, the government cannot have a case for it, right? So, I don't know, do you think it's a corporate's responsibility or the government should do it anyway?
I think maybe both corporate and the government should be responsible for this thing. And yes, so I think maybe, frank speaking, maybe for corporates, maybe they're just maybe concerned about maybe cost reduction, right? And also efficiency, So blockchain is just a tool, solution. And I think maybe, but the fact is maybe blockchain has a huge potential regarding the cost reduction of various kind of finance transaction. It's obvious, and yeah.
Okay.
And I believe maybe governments should support such maybe corporations, maybe demand. Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take 2 questions from the floor before I move on to the next segment of my questions.
Sure.
So Mulishri is asking, what do you think about the India market and if you have made any investments in the country?
Yes, that's a good question. Because MUFG has 6, 7 branches in India. So India is also another important market for MUFG. And but MUFG has focused on mainly large Japanese corporation and also some blue chip companies in India. And but they don't have businesses with SMEs and consumers, and which maybe cause some issues regarding the partnership with Indian fintech startups. So in the past, we have reviewed many Indian fintech companies. And also, we have visited to India several times to meet with several fintech companies there too. But I think maybe mainly, major fintech companies have focused on SMEs, consumers, because fintech or financial technologies can give tremendous efficiency to in current maybe inefficient business transactions with SMEs and consumers, because you have to deal with tons of maybe customers, right? And but by using let's say internet or mobile technology or blockchain, whatever, you can create a tremendous cost efficiency. And so that's why MUIP also has focused on investment in fintech lending companies which provide a loan to mainly SMEs. And MUFG has also suffered from the maybe how to deal with consumers, SMEs, because in the past, the bank, of course, had bank had considered maybe consumers and SMEs are important segment, but now we have negative interest rate environment, which means it's not easy for the bank to make money from the banking with consumers and SMEs, right? Or the loan margins are thin, and you can't make any money from a deposit itself, right? So you have to think about cost reduction. So fintech is a way to maybe monetize our current inefficient channels with SMEs and consumers. But anyway, so I think maybe in India, so we don't have a business with SMEs and consumers, and so the reason I mentioned, so it's not easy to create a business as a fintech company in India, but also we have seen so many good startups in let's say maybe AI or other tech maybe sectors. And MUFG could maybe utilize such technologies internally. Let's say, I met with, human resources technology company in India, and basically they provide a kind of a Salesforce automation type solution, but which give maybe most business to make their maybe sales activities more efficient. And the bank might maybe use such a technology internally, or maybe AI startups has a similar kind of maybe stories with us.
I understand.
So we might maybe invest in such a maybe a solution type technology company in India.
Understand. There's an interesting question from Aaron, who asked what kind of support do you or the MUFG group provide the investees?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is a very good question. And basically, we focus on various kind of collaboration and partnership between our portfolio companies and the MUFG's various entities. And through such a partnership with our portfolio companies can take advantage of our MUFG's huge asset networks and so on, right? And that's maybe a most important value proposition from MUFG to our portfolio companies. But in addition to that, also we have provided the various kind of support for our portfolio companies, maybe in terms of various kind of financial services, because we can provide loans to our portfolio companies. Also, we can be an underwriter of IPO filing for our portfolio companies. And also, we can maybe introduce maybe other clients for portfolio companies through our bank's network. And maybe such maybe things are also maybe typical value proposition by MUFG.
Understand.
Yes.
Okay, I will move on to my next part of my questions, which is, given that Suzuki-san, you have worked in as a VC, CVC, could you share what are some differences in approaching investment decisions or similarities?
You mean between typical VC firm and also the bank, right?
Yeah, correct.
Obviously, actually, so let me refrain about my background. But when I was in Global Brain, Global Brain had operated several CVC funds, like maybe companies like KDDI, which is the second largest mobile carrier in Japan, or Mitsui Fudosan, which is also one of the largest real estate company in Japan. But also the firm operated, independent, funds, and which were backed by maybe more than 10 LPs. Now, these kind of funds are specifically focused on maybe pure, general investment. So I think maybe regarding maybe CVC, I believe maybe we have a similar kind of ideas between current MUFG Innovation Partners and also my previous company, CVC Fund. So basically, business synergy is first, and financial return is the second. But also you have to balance both of them. That is kind of tricky.
Yeah.
So we can't make a loss from our investment, but we need to focus on strategic return from our investment. So I think maybe before our investment, when I'm currently my position, or when I was in a Global Bank, but we usually have a very intense interaction between candidate startups and also various kind of business lines of CVC's LP. And maybe in some cases, maybe it takes very long time to maybe reach to some kind of agreement about partnership and so on. But this is a very important procedure. And after that, we move to financial return part, which is kind of maybe a due diligence procedure, like financial due diligence, legal due diligence, and so on. Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah, I think maybe I can say that maybe MUFG is, of course, maybe the largest banking groups in Japan. So it sounds like maybe the bank seems conservative, but I can say the bank is has a very flexible ideas, and they are very much keen to work with startups. I can maybe tell about maybe various kind of track record about banks, partnership with startups in the past.
Yes,
so of course, it's a bank. So bank usually has a very tight, internal regulations about, let's say, system policy or compliance or cybersecurity standards and so on. So you have to overcome this kind of maybe homeworks. But anyway, so the bank really understands that they really need to maybe transform themselves by open innovation. Yeah.
I see. So just now you were talking about, conservative, like Japanese banks being conservative. I think there is somewhat a cultural, I don't know if I could call it a stereotype, right, of Japanese corporates and investors being more conservative, right? So do you agree with that or not?
Yeah, it depends on maybe companies. I think maybe as I mentioned, MUFG already has more than 4 years of track record of investment in global fintech companies, and obviously, if you think about investment in startup companies, you see some losses in the initial phase. That is very normal, and the bank already understand about that. But in sometimes maybe you have a home run deal, which maybe represent maybe all of maybe return of the fund or investment portfolio, right? That is a very, how can I say, volatile maybe investment, but it's way it should be, right? So the bank already understand about that. But some maybe Japanese traditional companies don't understand maybe this kind of nature of investment in startups.
Right.
So when I was in Global Bank, so I made tons of proposal to, traditional Japanese large companies about, launch of a CVC fund. And I got so many questions about risks associated with the investment in startups. And I believe maybe some companies don't have a maybe good fitting to investment in maybe startups because they don't understand about the startups or startups investment. And but that is not unique to Japanese companies, but it's more like maybe common issues among the large enterprises globally. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
How can Southeast Asia startups appeal to MUFG?
To MUFG, I think maybe we have a very clear picture about what kind of companies we should invest in Southeast Asia, which is basically synergies between portfolio companies and our partner banks in Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Philippines. So that is an important point. So maybe you can maybe consider various kind of maybe way to work with our partner banks here, but maybe as I mentioned in case of Grab, so our partner banks can provide a loan on a Grab's platform, and that is a maybe typical maybe arrangement. And also interesting is MUFG also has a plan to utilize Grab's AI engine resources for MUFG Bank itself. It's more like a maybe global initiative, mainly for let's say anti-money laundering. And because currently the bank executes AML with a huge team, and it costs a lot of money to the bank, but we might be able to replace maybe some of maybe such current anti-money laundering procedures with AI technologies. Yeah. Yeah.
So if a Southeast Asia startup wants to raise from MUFG, the best way is for them to work with first one of the your local bank.
Yeah,
partners,
local partner banks.
Right?
Yeah.
I see. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but also I just want to maybe emphasize that maybe we see also candidate from the financial return point of view, of course, and in that case, we want our portfolio companies to be scalable, which means in case of ICAs, you have 8, 9, 10 countries here, and which means if you focus on your local market, you can't be scalable, right? Let's say if you are, let's say, Thailand startup, initially maybe you should focus on Thailand market, but after that maybe you should go to Singapore or Indonesia or Vietnam or Philippines to maybe scale your businesses. And I want our portfolio companies to be scalable, like maybe what I mentioned. Yeah.
Understand. But just now we were just discussing about the difficulties of local fintech companies to expand to different countries just based on regulations, right?
Yeah.
Understand. Okay.
Yeah.
So how should startups manage a Japanese investor?
I think maybe, obviously we have a different culture, languages, and business customs and so on. And so you should maybe understand that maybe it might take longer time than you thought to get invested by Japanese investors. But also there's advantage, of Japanese investors. Basically, Japanese investors are patient. I mean, so once you got invested by Japanese investors, they should be a good partners for you guys because they're patient and they have a longer view of partnerships, which is maybe a little bit different from maybe, let's say, US investors or I don't know, but Chinese investors. But, yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
So during that period so you're saying that it takes longer for a Japanese investor to invest, right? So during that period of waiting, what are you thinking about?
What are investors? What are startups thinking about?
No, what are you thinking about? Because, for example, if I pitch to you, right?
Yeah.
Let's say if I pitch to a Southeast Asian investor, I probably could get funded in, let's say, 3-6 months, for example, right? And I assume maybe it would take longer if I were to pitch to you, right? So this longer period of time, what are you thinking of? Are you comparing me with other people or?
Yeah, I think maybe it depends on investors. I can, let's say there are maybe some good Japanese investors which focus on Southeast Asia, like maybe BNext or East Ventures or such maybe maybe my previous company Global Bank is also maybe one of them, but they know very well about maybe the market, and I think maybe also they have people there too. So these Japanese investors can make a very quick decision making. But if you think about strategic investors, typical case is maybe banks which include maybe MUFG or trading companies like Mitsubishi Corporation or Mitsui Corporation or Sumitomo or Itochu or maybe other maybe trading companies are also focused on Southeast Asia. And where they also are heavily invested in the startups in various sectors like retail, healthcare, or maybe some tech, or also financial too. And usually, as I mentioned, so maybe such strategic investors need longer time because they need to assess maybe strategic value of investment, and also they need to consider about financial return too.
Yep.
So obviously, maybe at least maybe you need maybe 2 times longer time than maybe pure financial investors. So
I understand. Should I keep looking for the Japanese investor like Suzuki-san?
Yeah. So it depends on maybe your maybe needs. I mean, you just need the money. So maybe try maybe a Japanese independent VC firms like BNext or East Ventures or Global Bank or whatever. But if we want to work with Japanese companies to enhance or expand their businesses by supporting from such maybe investors, you need to consider about such maybe strategic investors, right? So they can maybe provide both capital, but also they can provide access to new clients or various kind of maybe technologies or expertise or know-how and so on. Yeah.
So now given that we can't do face-to-face meetings, right? And I think the Japanese culture puts a lot of emphasis on, face-to-face interactions.
Yeah.
Do you think that would affect the chances of a startup raising funds from?
Yeah, I think maybe globally what's happening is, top tier startups, which are basically well funded by, good investors. they don't need to rush to maybe a fundraising, under the current circumstances, because obviously you have a disadvantage, right? I can't say disadvantage because right now maybe stock prices are so high, right? So maybe you might be able to get a higher, valuation. But anyway, I think maybe top tier startups maybe tend to focus on internal rounds, like maybe fundraising from existing investors through the maybe bridge finance. And it's not a price round, but it's more like convertible bond type, fundraising. And I think maybe some marginal maybe startups which are not well funded need to rush to maybe fundraise. So in that case, maybe you have some kind of disadvantage. But anyway, so it's hard for maybe investor to maybe reach to new good startups under the current circumstances because of the maybe COVID-19, and good companies maybe tend to focus on internal run, and so that creates some kind of maybe complexity and issue for maybe new investment. But regarding MUFG Innovation Partners, we fully utilize Zoom call to access to new entrepreneurs globally. And we have a daily conversation with maybe new deals with such companies. But obviously, so we can't physically visit there. And so we have some new challenges regarding especially building trust and also due diligence procedures. Because in the past, so we visited their companies on site and actually reviewed their operations, meet teams, and in some cases maybe having dinner or drink with entrepreneurs to understand each other, right?
Yeah.
But we can't do such a things under the current situation. So maybe I see some maybe reduction, maybe deal flows under the current circumstances. But we try to focus on maybe accessing maybe a good deals through the difference introduction from top tier VC firms in each local market.
Okay. We are almost out of time. I have one last question for you.
Sure.
What do you think are the 3 most important qualities an entrepreneur must have to be invested by you?
Yeah, I think maybe 3. Maybe first one is obviously entrepreneurs and also management team itself. And second is maybe market. What kind of market maybe do you choose? And third is I can say maybe it's basically differentiation, right? So all investors ask about differentiation, right? Obviously, maybe a team and the entrepreneur itself is important because once maybe you start a new business with a team, but sometimes you need to pivot yourself, right? So in that case, maybe sometimes you need to maybe abandon your past maybe business or technologies. But only thing you can rely on is basically human resources, people. Yeah. So that's the most important. Yeah, some maybe a good startups maybe made maybe several pivot before the IPO, but the team was once maybe team is good, maybe you can go public, right? Yeah, and also market is important, right? So maybe you need to focus on maybe a larger scalable market, and I think maybe you should not maybe focus on the niche market. And differentiation, of course, important. Maybe how to differentiate yourself from competitors, maybe in terms of technologies or maybe scope of market or pricing or whatever. But you really need differentiation. Otherwise, maybe you are just maybe
copycat.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Suzuki-san, for your time.
Yeah.
I am very honored because we don't normally get the chance to hear from a Japanese investor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's my honor to maybe join this prestigious event, and I really enjoy maybe conversation with you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I hope everyone learned something from Suzuki-san's sharing today. Our next session will be on August 13th from Natasha, who is a VC from India. So stay tuned and have a great evening ahead. Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.